Need for Speed, one of the most well-known franchises in racing games, is famous for its iconic cover cars, police chases, extreme customization options, narratives featuring equal amounts of edginess and cringe, and being a snapshot of popular car culture of the time. Almost lost in the current nostalgia of classic Need for Speed games is an oddity that only focuses on one marque, Porsche. Released at the turn of the new millennium, Porsche Unleashed celebrates and chronicles 50 years of their famous cars. The oddities continue, with elements of realism in its physics, a near lack of police chases, 2 career modes, and representing the many variations of a single model line. If the goal is to teach Porsche history and represent their driving dynamics in video game form, would it be enough to get players into the brand? The year range covered is 1950 to 2000. This is from the 1950 356 1100 Coupe Ferdinand to the 2000 911 Turbo. While Porsche during this time frame did not have many different production models, the number of model variations featured in this game can only be rivaled by Gran Turismo's obsession with Skyline GTRs. With the 356A, for example, there is the lower-end 1300 Coupe and the high-end 1600 Super Coupe. But what about the many versions in between, like the 1600 Convertible D and the 1600 Speedster? Looking at the 356B, you may notice the coupe and hardtop have slightly different roofs. What about the difference between the Cabriolet and Roadster convertibles? The Roadster has a Speedster-like dashboard and no rear seats. Further deepening the information provided are vehicle showcase pages that provide technical specifications, including tire sizes, vehicle size dimensions, and engine data. It continues with a limited selection of print media, photos, and presentation videos detailing the history of the featured models in the game.
It had long been the dream of Ferry Porsche and his father Ferdinand to build a sports car bearing the Porsche nameplate. And in June of 1947, a new project was born, 356.
After the 356B lineup, the number of models, variations, and fine detailing drop noticeably. It is quite sparse for the 1970s and 80s. While the excessive amount of variations border on absurdity to a typical racing game player, it is inconsistent when the mid-year and 3.2-liter 911s, entire models like the 928, and all but 3 motorsport race cars are absent. The most unobtainium variants, such as the 993 GT2, are also not here. It is mainly higher volume production models. It would be like if Toyota Unleashed was made today, and featured the Toyota Corolla lineup from the LE hybrid sedan to the XSE hatchback, and the GR Corolla, but left out the GR Corolla Morizo edition. However, considering the technical limitations of the time and the development time frame, it quickly becomes clear that there is no way all important cars can be added. If anything, the way they were able to get away with doing so many variations is to create a common body shell and change the details, which in a way is very much like how old Porsches were made. The 356 models have mostly great attention to detail, like different dashboards, bumpers, and exterior lights. Subsequent models have merely some attention, such as different widths between the 993 standard body and wide body, but there are more easily noticeable lapses that purist Hawkeyes will notice, like the 1972 911 having the incorrect seats and the 1982 944 having the incorrect dashboard. Authenticity efforts continue with car audio, where they change across different models and even variations. As a nice touch, the sound muffles when in the driver's seat view, and there is wind buffeting in convertibles with the roof lowered. There are a significant improvement over the very synthesized retro noises from earlier Need for Speed games, but like the car detailing, some engine audio sound close enough to real life, and some don't at all. There are some mix-ups as well, like the 993 Targa having a different sound than the rest of the 993 lineup. There are 2 career modes. Factory Driver is the shorter campaign, with the player as a test driver. It is a variety of driving challenges such as sprints, skid pad maneuvers, high-speed deliveries, and driver racing challenges. It only allows the use of unmodified factory cars, and highlights the physics of the game. This mode sees some missions with traffic and police on the road, though the police are brain-dead rolling roadblocks with a panache for sudden neck-snapping sideways stops. Competing against other colleague test drivers reveal that they are not quite the finest racers in the world, and the 360-degree maneuvers can be infuriating. Overall, the factory driver mode is decent enough and is short enough to not be a drag. The main career mode is Evolution. It is a chronological progression through the three eras from 1950 to 2000. Starting with the slow 356, things are easy enough, but not long after it is when speed increases considerably with the 911. It is not always speed increases, as the game does bring a couple entry-level models in between the flagships. When tournaments are finished and the era is completed, it unlocks new club races for older cars, allowing them to be raced again to raise money to buy other cars. Evolution is where most of the game time will be spent, as a vast majority of the cars are unlocked by purchasing them in the mode. Some model variations can only be found in the used car screen, as the year jumps during progression does not allow for all of them to be available brand new. Rather worryingly, all the used cars look effectively totaled and ripe for a sketch rebuild title. In a way, Evolution gives vibes of the car collector experience. Cars have a market value, and as time goes on, those classic Porsches will become more valuable. Maybe you are the kind of person who is interested in owning different 911s, from different body styles and powertrains. With the engine and handling specifics of model variations, some cars will accelerate notably slower and handle slightly worse than their more expensive siblings. Cars can be modified with performance parts and adjustments, and some even may have parts to change the exterior appearance slightly. The game's driving dynamics is the opposite of the arcade handling experiences of Need for Speed Hot Pursuit and High Stakes. At the same time, Porsche Unleashed is not a simulation. With some realism elements where it matters, it creates a distinct feel between the major Porsche models. Rear-engine cars have a noticeable perception of a heavy boat anchor hanging around the rear wheels that can lead to some wayward slides, if control inputs are made too aggressively. Careful car control and braking is even more paramount when attaching a large number of performance upgrades on models like the 911. The mid-engine Boxster or front-engine 944 have smoother handling, but still require some care when highly modified. The grade and number of upgrades can have a mild to extreme effect on performance. A car with lots of high-end suspension attachments and setting changes can become twitchy with aggressive turn-in, have heavyweight sled-like handling, and be more prone to rollovers on an unfortunate bump or bank. The differences between vehicles and mods installed have greater variation in speed and feel than many racing games of today. Upping the risk is vehicle damage and repair bills. The game rewards for clean driving. As the career mode progresses into ever faster and more expensive cars, the consequences of a high-speed wreck are high, and enough to prevent any hope of finishing better than third place in a race. The harder the impacts, the worse the car's performance becomes, and repair costs in Evolution mode can get very high late game. In early years of Need for Speed, there was a lot of emphasis on open road courses. In this game, the courses are point A to B sprints, plus 5 variations of a motorsports-styled circuit. They augment the handling realism theme further, with many varieties of different turns, snow and rain affecting surface grip, and the perils of flying through cramped sections or low-lit areas. The courses are quite pleasant and entertaining to drive through, being themed after famous European locations. There is a very distinct look to each of them. Though the selection is somewhat limited, the races are rarely very long, and they feel very different when ran in reverse. Visually, the game looks very much of its time, which is both a blessing and a curse. The graphics of the PC version is, of course, far superior to the PlayStation 1 version from a technical perspective, and the same can be said when comparing it to the PC version of the immediate Need for Speed predecessor, High Stakes. The tragedy is that this game does not look primitive enough to be charmingly retro, but is not new enough to be appreciated for the graphical advances. It is very easy to notice some of the ugliness. Looking around, the track environments are nicely created, textured well enough, and make excellent use of colors and lighting, but those distant views date the game quite badly. Looking at the cars, the body shapes are mostly well modeled and have rather sophisticated deformation as the car takes damage. Viewing the car in the garage, you can open the hood, the engine bay, the doors, look inside the interiors, and raise or lower the convertible top. You will also notice effectively ironed flat rims, which do no justice to how beautiful they look in real life. The engine bays look like they are filled with piles of metal scraps, and the dashboard and car exterior textures during a race are as low-resolution stickers as they can possibly get. But there is some explanation. Porsche Unleashed was the 4th consecutive year of a main Need for Speed release. There was Need for Speed 2 in 1997, Hot Pursuit in 98, High Stakes in 99, and Porsche Unleashed in March 2000. There is only 1 year separating each of these releases. It was a miracle, or unhealthy crunch time, that they managed to get this much of the game finished and tested in such an extremely limited amount of time, and it all had to fit on a single 650 megabyte disc. It very much is a case of what could have been if they had another year or two to develop the game, and how much more content there would have been with a second disc. Alas, the only additions to the game after release were a couple patches and 4 free downloadable cars. Later in the year 2000, the PlayStation 2 released in North America, and with DVD disc technology, significant hardware advances, and Gran Turismo 3's release in 2001, Unleashed was completely obsolete on a technical level in short time. In 2002, Need for Speed returned to its high-speed arcade racing thrills with Hot Pursuit 2, and the franchise did not explore realism again until Shift in 2009. Porsche Unleashed is the awkward oddity that separated 2 iconic eras of Need for Speed. It was a mission and focus so different to the franchise and racing games in general that it was never done to this extent before or since. The only things to memory that come close is the Porsche expansion pack for Forza Motorsport 6 and the museum menus in Gran Turismo Sport and 7. The Forza 6 expansion does some similar things to Unleashed. It features some variety of Porsche production and race cars, but this time you won't be inundated with 15 variants of the same model. The abbreviated career mode explores Porsche through 3 eras, like Evolution did. But unlike Unleashed, the Forza expansion is presented more like a highlights reel. Information is brief, and the races are on motorsport circuit tracks. It is not a journey through the many story years on the open road. Gran Turismo 7 is a general collection of cars, but the Porsches chosen are detailed meticulously and have handling feel that mimics the real-life cars. For history, it has museum pages on the brand, but it is a picture book of significant events and whatever models they chose to present. Perhaps the market for a detailed Chronicles single marque racing game just does not exist. It is difficult to imagine a game like this selling in many units, particularly when a vast majority of players want a big variety of desirable and fast cars. Much of the focus of today's enthusiast-oriented racing games is in 2 areas, realism and technical fidelity. I argue that cars are not just about fastest lap times, motorsport fantasies, meets, and street racing. A lot of people who are into cars also love the history, stories, technical details, and overall general geeky knowledge. The only racing game I know of that comes close to accomplishing this is Need for Speed Porsche Unleashed. Despite the painfully rushed development and the major flaws that resulted, no other racing game has put this much effort into detailing a single company and being a good driving experience at the same time. If Gran Turismo's mission is to bring a common person into loving cars, then the mission of Porsche Unleashed was to bring a person who loves cars into also loving Porsches, and in that respect, it mostly succeeded.
This is my 2007 Porsche Cayman. With 106,000 miles and having been a former daily driver for the previous owner, it has some scars. It's also the base model, which means that it accelerates almost as slow as the base Boxster in the video game. When I bought this car last year, I couldn't help but be reminded of one of my most beloved games from my childhood. It has always been a dream of mine, since that game, to own a Porsche sports car. Since Porsche Unleashed, the brand has been my go-to for various racing games. When Forza Motorsport 6 had the Porsche expansion pack announced, I was ecstatic. So one of the first things I noticed when I walked in here is the Porsche 918 Spider.
Yes.
And then I knew Porsches were coming to Forza Motorsport 6.
Yes.
One of my most favorite automotive brands since I was 8 years old. With this Cayman, I have autocrossed it, driven it up mountain passes, and soon I will bring it to its first track day. In a spirited drive, it is as good and as composed as I would imagine a Porsche sports car to be. It is delightful. Maybe there should be another historic single marque racing video game. You never know. You might inspire someone.